So my assumption that people are always going to get are going to work less is wrong. And actually one of my learnings, which was surprising for me, is are people just going to want their time back? No, actually sometimes their priorities are different.
I'm your host, Evelyn Clark, and this is the 6 Star Business Podcast, where I get to have incredible conversations with people from all around the world, all about what it takes to be 6 Star. I delve into their journeys, their history, what makes them who they are today, what their genius is, and how they've come into alignment with that genius and how they're serving the world. Because it's through that pure alignment with ourselves that we can properly serve our customers through our businesses and create a greater impact in the world. It's all about ourselves first, and that's what it takes to be 6 Star. Enjoy. My guest this week is Lloyd Thompson. What stood out for me about this conversation is how open and happy and accepting he is of differences. And what I mean by that is we are all unique. And Lloyd himself has a very consciously created life. You know, he does a surf every day. He does it in the middle of the day around his work. He has staff in his team that he allows to do what they need to do in the way that suits them best. He accepts the differences and doesn't try and force people into a set model or a framework in order to achieve results. And this is how he approaches his clients, his business. And it just really stood out for me, and it was definitely something that we can all learn from. He's got a brilliant story. He chose to live in Australia. He moved over here about 15 or 16 years ago, and he loves it. He loves life, and he's always looking to make life better for other people. It's a wonderful conversation. I know you're going to enjoy it as much as I did. This is Lloyd Thompson.
My favourite time of the day or the week is to have one of these conversations. And Lloyd, I am so grateful that you showed up into my inbox in my computer screen, and now here you are on the podcast today. Welcome.
Wow, thank you so much for having me.
It's so good. You're a fellow Australian. I get to, hang out with an Aussie in my time zone, which is rare because a lot of my guests are like all over the world. So I'd like to get to know you a bit better. Can you share with the listeners, where are you, and what do you do, and who do you serve? How do you serve them?
Sure. Yeah, so first up, I'm in Freshwater, which is next to Manly, which is just on the outskirts of Sydney. Some would even say it's the outskirts. And for anyone who's international, that's Australia. And, well, you were right. I am a fellow Aussie. I am a citizen, but actually my past life, I was born in England, and but moved here 15 years ago here in Australia, and I love it. And so I've been here getting used to the Australian way of life, living by the sea and surfing and all of those things. Who do I serve? So I help busy online business owners with teams, and I help them get more time so that they can get out of the day-to-day operations. And I do that by providing a director of operations on a fractional basis and access to my support team on a month-to-month subscription. So that's a lot to take in. So what does that actually mean? What do we do for them? So typically a director of operations will lead their team so they don't have to. That's one of the ways we're getting them back time. We're overseeing their projects and their operations to give them that operational smoothness. And then we drive continuous process improvement so that business can scale.
You've been asked that before a couple of times, haven't you, Lloyd?
A few times. Yeah. I've got a few neurons in my brain that go, press that button again.
It's not always easy to answer that question in such a succinct way that makes sense to someone who's got no idea what fractional CEO means. So well done for a start. And I look forward to unpacking more of that as we go forward. I've got a question. So you chose to be in Australia and you live here, you love it. Obviously, you love the lifestyle and the climate. It's very different to the UK. Normally I ask my guests, what do you like doing when you're not busy serving people? So what do you like doing outside of that? So I'd like to ask you the same question.
Sure. Well, actually, just before this very podcast, I was scrambling. So I looked at my watch. I was in the sea and I'd gone for a surf. And what had happened is, 16 years ago, I came to a friend's wedding, which was here in Australia. And I thought, wow, and that was in Manly near me. And I thought, wow, this is a nice place. Looked at the lifestyle, living by the sea, seeing people going surfing. And I thought, I want to do that. So outside of work, outside of my business, that's me. Like I've got a KPI, one surf a day. And I'm pretty good at sticking to that. So there I was just before this podcast, hang on a minute. I had one good hour in the surf and then I ran back here and switched all the camera lights on and here we are.
I absolutely love it. What's it like living in a place where you've consciously chosen to live there because you loved it, like you fell in love with the place and it was obviously the other side of the world?
I was pretty lucky because I already had a friend here whose wedding I went to, who was a friend from university. So I was instantly brought into this person's community. And then also we're so lucky now that we have the means of communication that we do. Like it's so easy to I call my mum quite often. In fact, I call my dad too quite often, but I'm on there using WhatsApp or whatever and doing a screen share. In the same way that I'm talking to other businesses, I can just screen share straight away, talk to them. Feels like we're in the same place. The only time is just different time zones, meaning we have to shift when we do things. So my business, for example, is mostly serving US customers. But this morning, so I was talking to a UK customer, which means that I tend to do things early in the morning and then I've got the middle of the day to go surfing. So what's it like being here? I don't want to offend anyone in England, really, but for me, it's like I love it here. I love the great outdoors. I started off being in Manly, which is, it's a beach town. It's a nice, easy commute to what we would say the city, Sydney, which still seems like a country town compared to London, where I'm from there. And then I'd moved to Manly, which is, a quieter, beachy place. And I've slowly moved over to the next beach over to be even slightly quieter. I can't see myself moving out even more rural, but just enjoying that, being close to nature and being close to the sea. And is actually one of the main reasons why I started this business, because I wanted that flexibility in terms of time and location. And now I feel like I've got it now. I can work from home, get the time in at the beach, and well, more travel is on the books.
I can't wait to talk more about this. And I know our listeners, no matter where they are, will be very interested to hear about how you transition to that. So that's a great segue into the next question, which is, Lloyd, please tell me about the journey that's brought you from, I don't know, way back, maybe in the UK or before, to where you are today. So, and what's brought you to here to do the work that you are doing today? I'm really keen to know about the journey.
So when I moved over to Australia, I was still in corporate world, and I was contracting originally. I'd been consulting in engineering and then particularly IT projects, and I was a techie. And over the course of my career, I started taking on larger and larger teams. And for the best part, these were remote. So you can think of one team I had a large team of 20 plus in the Philippines. I had a handful of folks in Sydney and Australia, and a couple of folks in the UK and a couple of folks in New York in my team. So I was very much used to this remote team working. And then when we had COVID, obviously we started working remotely and working from home. And for me, there were some positive changes to this, actually. I know it's meant a lot of bad things for a lot of people, but for some of the benefits here were, my team were all used to working remotely anyway. In the folks that I had in Sydney were used to working out. They all had laptops. They were used to working from home. And for me, I was comfortable with it. But then I developed this feeling that I did not really want to go back to the brightly lit office anymore. I had replaced my daily commute with going surfing every day. Instead of getting up and getting on the bus and going to the city or the ferry. Oh no, ferry's not too shabby. But that daily commute, I was going out for a surf every morning, and quite often I'd get a surf in on the lunch break too. And I thought, I really don't want to give that up. This is amazing. And it just so happened that in my hobby life, I had started taking photos of the beach and posting up on Instagram. I was generally the first person in the water, and I'd take a photo. This is what's happening at Freshwater Beach or whatever, and I'd give a little update and what board to take and something like that. And there was no financial benefit to doing this. This is just for fun, and I got a few people following this. And then I started giving audio surf reports to a few people on WhatsApp, and then this thing just exploded during COVID. So this is just for fun. And one of my followers was a guy, I'll share his name. His name's James Schramko. He's a business coach. I don't really know of any business coaches. It wasn't something I'd spent anything in that space. I was in corporate managing teams, but hadn't really looked out about setting up a business or anything like that. But he was subscribing to my daily reports. And then during COVID, where we could still go surfing and during our lockdown, I saw him in the sea and I said, "Oh, are you James?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm James." And I said, "Oh, are you the business coach guy?" He said, "Yeah, I'm a business coach guy." And I said, well, if I wanted to start a business, these are my skills, what could I do? And we had a few conversations about this. And I said, basically I'm good at overseeing teams remotely and making sure projects are running smoothly and driving process improvement. And he said, "Yeah, I reckon there's some opportunities there." And he pointed me in the direction of this book. And this book is called Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman. And it talks about the relationship between a visionary and an integrator. And the visionary is typically the CEO type character. He or she has the big vision, hence the name visionary, focuses on strategy and relationships, probably in sales. Whereas the integrator, and I'd also use the term COO or DOO or chief of staff, is the person that makes it all happen. Like they're the person that's going to bring the team together and make sure that things run like a well-oiled machine. And they're quite often different characters. And when you start a business, you're both. And you're both, and you're doing the delivery. But as the business grows, you can't be all things. And so this book explained to me the differences of these characters and why you need more than one when you start getting a bit bigger. And it was just really clear to me that I was an integrator. And so I said, "Yeah, okay, James, this is absolutely clear to me. I'm one of these. I'm an integrator." Absolutely true. And he said, "Well, perhaps there's a lot of fractional businesses out there. You've heard of fractional CFOs. You've heard of fractional now CMOs, marketers. There might be an opportunity for you to do fractional integration or fractional director of operations, as I now call it." So I thought, okay, well, I'll look into this. And he said, "Look, I've got someone you might be able to help. He's got, so maybe talk to this guy." And he referred me my first client. I spoke to this guy. He was an e-commerce business owner. He had a large team, very good at selling products and and marketing, and had built a very successful business. But he was working incredibly long hours, just scattergunning the team with tasks to make it all happen. And he didn't really know another way. And so I thought, well, I know how to fix this. Like this is stuff I've put rhythms in place for in corporate world. This is my bread and butter. So that was my first client, and I was openly saying, "Look, I'm fractional with you. I'm going to be taking on other business," and that's how it all began. I started taking on more and more clients, and then when I got to 3 clients, I personally was maxed out. Like I couldn't do any more than that. So I hired a person in the Philippines to help me with a lot of my administration, and now it's also bookkeeping, helping me create content, and also some of the things for my clients too. And then when I got my 4th client coming in, I started hiring director of operations to work under me. And now that's pretty much the model for my business, in that I'm there in my business to support clients from mainly as a perspective as an account manager and oversee my director of operations. But I'm not there to say, hey, you're getting your job done. That's not how it's working. I'm looking to hire people that I'm confident with their skill set matches what I'm looking for, and I'm there as their support. So when they think about a people challenge or a system, like how best to go about it, they've got someone they can soundboard it off who's done this quite a bit now. And so that's how it works. I'm talking with my team of director of operations very regularly. Start the day, there's normally a few messages. Hey, what do you think of this scenario? Or give me your 2 cents of that. Or they might have recorded a meeting that they've had with someone and said, hey, look, this is their challenge. I'm thinking we do this. What do you think, Lloyd? And I'll give them my 2 cents and support. So that's how my business has evolved.
And you say this with just this sunny smile on your face. For those audio listeners, yeah, Lloyd's just got this sunny, happy disposition. It's like, no wonder. Like, it's so easy to talk to you, and you're just, everything's light and easy. And I'm just like, has this guy had any challenges? Was that just like, it sounds like you just flowed into this new business model. Tell me, am I thinking?
No, it's definitely not always sunshine and rainbows. I mean, I definitely wouldn't put it like this, but I did get a laugh out of a fellow business owner the other day who was telling me that he thinks what a business owner is being kicked in the privates regularly and carrying on persistently. And I'm like, well, I've definitely experienced fallbacks before. I would say it's really about persistence, learning from it and going from there. And one of my first mistakes was when I first started hiring director of operations, I treated it like when I was hiring in corporate world, I was hiring to be in my team, my values. But now what I've realized is I have to not only hire for my values, I also have to hire to make sure they're a cultural fit for the company that I work for. It sounds so obvious now, but when I was trying to extract myself out of one of the clients that I'd been working with, where I was the director of operations because I'd taken on more work and I needed to come out myself, I had hired someone who he ticked the goals or the skill set of and I'll just dive into this briefly. I look for 3 areas typically. I look for empathy. Like, how good are they with leading a team? And I think that's empathy first. So I'm big on servant leadership. So that's an area I really like. Are they good with the organization skill set, classic project management skills? And then finally, do they have the analysis skills? Because when they're looking at the reds and greens of the business where things are going wrong, they need to be able to have a good analytical brain to understand someone's explaining to them why something's going wrong. They need to be able to understand that. It doesn't mean that they're personally going to fix the issue, but they need to be able to have some inputs to know what's going on. So that's what I look for, but very much the empathy before I get started. But then there's a couple of different ways they're going to go. Like, are they a very consultative leader, or are they more of a, we're going to do this, this is the style? And I'd hired someone who was very much a consultative leader and tried to put him into a business where they just want to make a decision. They're prepared for it to be wrong. And if it blows up, that's fine. They turn the other way, but they don't want to. That was their style, very short and sharp and quick. So he, unfortunately, was not, a fit for that one. Later on down the road, he was ideal for another customer who had. They were very warm and fuzzy, and they want to talk about, get everyone in and warm before they do something, and then they go down that road. So that was definitely one of the mistakes I've made, and there's quite a few down the road too. But I've definitely had a benefit from having a business coach who's had the experience and also made mistakes in business as well. And so rather than me make all of those business mistakes, I've got someone else I can talk to about what I'm thinking of doing next.
That's good. I'm pleased to hear that you're not perfect. Okay, so I can put that little assumption aside. Phew. Okay, human being, all normal here. What's unique though, Lloyd, is you had a business coach from the get-go. Literally, were you still employed by the corporate company you were working for at the time you met James in the surf?
So when I met him in the surf, so this had been brewing a while. I didn't take on a customer until I resigned, but this had been maybe conversations with James had started 6 months before I resigned from corporate. And, read this book. What do you think about this? Bounce it back and forth. And now I was quite lucky in that I had quite a bit of savings anyway. So I was prepared to take a risk and I was prepared to take time out. And I'd got to the point in corporate where I thought I'm either going to try and start a business or I'm going to go and work for a startup, because I've worked for corporations since I was 18. Like even before university, I was doing work with corporates, just part-time work, doing database administration, all sorts. I just wanted to go and work for something more nimble and less red tape where I can move faster. And so, 6 months before I started these conversations with James. And then at one point I thought, you know what, I'm ready to just do this. And I resigned. I gave the company more notice than I needed to, but started having initial conversations with a potential client during my notice period. And then we were off. So that's just pretty much no break, just straight from corporate, straight into business.
Was there a defining event that occurred which, initiated you pulling the pin on the corporate job? Was there something that you went, right, it's time?
I was starting to feel a bit frustrated with, there was a positive and a negative side. The positive was I'm really been enjoying working remotely, and I could just see that I couldn't understand why businesses were needing to pull everyone back to the office eventually full time. And I do see that there is a benefit of hybrid in that as much as I can run a business fully remotely, if you get the opportunity to go and visit people, your clients and your team in person, it really makes a difference. And fortunately for me, I like travel. So that's something I like to do. So that was something there. Like that was the positive side, and that this is something I wanted to do. The negative side of being corporate is sometimes I feel like there were decisions being made that I, as an executor and having a large team, would have to just do, and was not being able to take the full accountability for my own decisions. It's just office bureaucracy. And it's not boo-hoo, poor me. There's going to be that in every corporate job. But if it's your own business, there's a satisfaction of being able to entirely blame yourself for your mistakes. And so I was ready for that. I just want to say, you know what, anything that happens in my business, I make this mistake, I'm going to learn from it. I can blame me. And that's really satisfying. So I was ready, and I was just, I really wanted to just move and do something different and recreate and learn something new. I think I was just dying to learn something new.
So was it a matter of feeling confident and ready to take the leap and waking up one day and going, yeah, I'm ready? Confident?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say I was 100% confident. I would just say, I'm just going to do this. I just got to the point of like, it's how long do I want to wait to give this a shot? I'm just going to do it. And with that in mind, I penned together my resignation, and I was really unsure about it. I remember thinking, is this the right thing to do? I'm penning this in. And then when I clicked send, this strange feeling of euphoria erupted, and I could not understand it. It's like, where had that been hiding? If that had been hiding there all along, why didn't I do this earlier? Why didn't I do this 2 years ago? That was a strange thing for me, because I discovered that I didn't know myself as much as I thought I did. And I'm so glad I've done it. Don't get me wrong, there's ups and downs with business, but I've just learned so much, just new skills since I've been in business.
It's wonderful to hear that. There's a line that I've heard different people say over the years, and that is that when one is in business, it's largely a journey of getting to know oneself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
it sounds like that's what you stumbled upon at the very beginning.
Yeah. And it does test you. There's always challenges, and it can be a bit of a lonely sport too. Like it's your business. You've got to make it all work. But it does help having a coach as well, like someone who's in your corner who you can soundboard these ideas with. And it doesn't have to be if other people are thinking about starting businesses, I wouldn't say they have to have an official paid coach, but not having a mentor, someone who's done it before, or being in a community of other business owners, which I am, that really helps. It doesn't feel like, in corporate world, sometimes you'd see this kind of dog-eat-dog behavior, and I'm not painting a nirvana picture of business world either, but there can be this, if someone gets a promotion, someone else might be disappointed or something like that. But I find in the community that I'm in, there's a feeling of, we've all got that entrepreneurial style. We're all trying to figure things out. We've all got challenges. How do we do this marketing, or what's this different? Has this worked for you? Should we try this? And we all just help each other out. And I've got other people who do operations. It's not the same business as mine, but some people do systemization and so forth. And we just bounce ideas off each other. It's not, even if they're in a similar space, we're like, okay, well, we're not stealing each other's customers. Let's have a chat, share some ideas. So it's really great.
Yeah, what you're describing is I believe one of the foundational success pillars for any business owner is to have a community. And I wish I'd had that at the beginning of my journey, and I didn't. And it took a lot of time and the school of hard knocks to learn how valuable that is. And I'm really glad for you that you had it from the get-go. Yeah, it was really good.
That hasn't stopped me making mistakes, but it does give me someone who's going to pull me up on if I'm like, okay, well, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. And then he'll say to me, well, what was the lesson? I go, okay, so it just reinforces that there's a positive every time. Like, okay, what was the lesson? What am I going to change? My business is a model. What am I going to tweak in the model and make sure that I've learned from it and I've adapted and made my business another bit better than it was before.
Did you, before you chose to start your business, obviously you've been having these conversations with James, was there someone else apart from James whom you saw in the business world that you looked up to? Or was your model or the example James's success?
That is a really tricky question. I'd never really followed. I've certainly admired the likes of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and I was a techie for a long time, so I always to follow different businesses and what they did and their how they innovated. I always enjoyed that, and I did at one point have, and this was a failure earlier on. I did at one point have a surfing website like 5-6 years ago, that I was actually selling like a little mini e-com store, and I was trying to sell little knickknacks on there. And I think what I learned there is I was selling like low value products, and I was putting in, I was doing Facebook ads and Google ads, and I was selling low value in terms of price, one-off physical products. And I'd spoken to James about this since, and he said, you know what your mistake was? You were selling, low value one-off physical products. You should be selling high value, reoccurring services, and it's like, so that's what I'm doing now. So it's funny. It's funny how it's evolved. I wouldn't say there was a particular person that I was modeling my business on. But I've always liked being independent. And even in corporate, for half of my career, I was a contractor, and I just enjoyed that. I enjoyed that you could have the freedom. You could stay with them and my contracts were quite long running generally, but I enjoyed the fact that it felt like, if I wanted to leave, and you can as a permanent too, but I just felt like there was just a certain psychological freedom to contracting that I enjoyed. And this starting a business felt like another level up for me.
So fascinating. At what point did you realize that the guy that you met in the surf that gave you the book, that, got you started thinking about everything, when did you realize that he was the real deal and that he was a successful business
That's
coach?
another great question. There was, and if James hears this, he might be like, what? But there was definitely a time where I'm like, is this real? Like that was something for me. I'm thinking, is this really going to go somewhere? Am I wasting my time? And then I was balancing out, well, at least I'm going to learn something from it. Like this would be an interesting experiment. But then I got to meet other people who he'd coached. And then I saw, and relative to these people who are still in my community now, I'm still a newbie compared to these guys and ladies. And I see where they've gone, and I think, okay, well, this guy is the real deal. And, even the accountant he's recommended, he's like, yep, James is the real deal. I'm like, okay, that's good to know. But I know it for sure. Yeah, just meeting someone else in person, having a business that he has coached and made a huge difference to. Yeah, certain of it.
The power of the referral, the real referral. Yeah.
Yeah.
And recommendation. Yeah. So you're in this business. You mentioned before the book by Gene Hackman. Yeah. Rocket Fuel.
Yeah, Gino Wickman, Rocket Fuel.
Gino Wickman, Rocket Fuel. Okay. So for those listeners, please check this book out. And what's really fascinating is, so you're an integrator. And yet when you started to hire other integrators, they had different styles to you. So, I just want to point this out because I've, I guess, been in the space of human resources and development of people, and I've had a number of people on this podcast who work with, empowering teams and people, and they have different tools and products, and so I've been across them for a long time, 25 years.
Wow.
And so you've got these different styles, okay, like the visionary, the integrator, etc. But there's obviously another dimension that impacts your decision making and your natural behavior and decisions and how you make choices, because you said that this person that you'd hired was the consultative person. And I just want to highlight this and ask you, have you uncovered the differences, and is there something that you've used to identify those differences in style?
I think what I've learned here is I need to have more conversations. So I had already made the decision that I was comfortable with working with this person, because there are those tick boxes that I've got in terms of empathy, coordinated, analytical. And it's not something like I have a quick conversation, you're hired. It's normally like I've having conversations with people over a long period of time, and I'm confident. And now people come to me through my network, so I generally get a recommendation that way that we're going to be on the same page. But on the client side, that's where I need to have some more conversations with them and a few people in their team, ideally, to understand what they're like and where if things are going to align. So that's a little bit more nuanced, just understanding their style. Because myself, I wouldn't say I'm all things in terms of style, but I can switch between short and sharp and here's a decision and consultative. I'm quite comfortable with making a decision quick if the founder wants to go down that road and just say, yeah, let's go. But other people want to go, no, hold up. We're going to go around this a bit longer. So it's more about understanding the client. And for this reason, actually, often how we start our engagements is we do an assessment of the business. And sometimes we can just start working and providing director of operations work. But even as a part of, we're starting with the implementation, in the background, we are doing an assessment of the business as well. But if I'm starting with just an assessment, if they paid for a one-off piece of work to start an assessment with us, then we're gathering as much inputs from the people who we're connecting with in terms of their character, how the leadership team operate, and so forth. And that is the ideal way to start with this assessment, because we're not just getting an idea of their systems and their processes. We're also getting an idea about, how does this team work together? what kind of leader do they need? Do they need someone who's got that short, sharp style? And that's the way they're all going to, or do they need someone who's more like, oh, okay, yeah, let's talk a bit more and go a few more times around, and that's how we're going to go. So in that, the earlier I pick up on that style, the better, though, because if I put someone in to do an assessment, that director of operations, and then they go, you know what, this is not my style, and I put someone else in, and I have done that before, by the way, then it means that team, that client, then has to adapt to a new character. So as soon as I've got a feeling of what they're like, and I try and get it as right first time, then I'll put the operator in. But starting with an assessment is an ideal case for us, because it's like an audition for our director of operations, but it also allows our director of operations to say, well, do you want to work with this team? It's a two-way street.
Absolutely. And what you're really talking about here is getting to know people and aligning people and creating the optimal relationship, right? So whilst your technical skill set is in the operations and the DOO, and obviously now you're being the account manager, effectively you're creating relationships.
Yeah, and in fact, it only dawned on me recently that I was having someone look at sending out some emails on behalf of my business, because most of my marketing's content creation, including podcasting, but I've done very little paid marketing, and I've got someone who's looking at emails, and I actually did an audit for this person, and he's like, tell me more about your USP, and I was saying, well, yeah. What's unique about our services? And I say, okay, well, we're fractional, we're month to month with DOOs and so forth. And then he just picked on one thing that hadn't really dawned on me. And it was about, although lots of businesses will systemize, you can go out and get people to systemize your business. Quite often the challenge is making that then stick. And my focus on the people I'm hiring and the businesses I'm working with is how I'm going to get someone to play well with that business, win over hearts and minds. So it's like systemization through emotional intelligence. That's really the focus of it. That's where we're different. And so I think that's the really hard bit. You might have all these wonderful ideas about systems and processes, but you've got to have that winning hearts and minds piece as well. Absolutely.
And, here on the podcast, I have conversations with people, from all different walks of life, obviously mostly business people. And I like to delve into a little bit more than, we kind of pull the hood back. Obviously, there's the functional nuances of your business and how you serve. It's like the outer shell or even the skeleton. And what's underneath all that is people. Okay. And it's the reason that we're in business. So if I said to you, Lloyd, what's your reason for being in business? What would you say?
Well, for me, it was time. I had worked long hours in corporate forever. And while I enjoyed working with the team, I got to the point of just thinking, well, I really want to have more time and flexibility. So that was a trigger for me. That was one of the things. And looking more about working with businesses, I can think of my first client. He was working 16-hour days. I don't want to do 16-hour days. Having that empathy with him, like I can get this guy, and I can see the problem he was having too. Like I can get this guy out of this. I can really put rhythms in place. I can take some of this load off him. I can make his team autonomous. So I am truly passionate about A, getting myself more time, but B, getting the clients more time. I've done it for myself. I know how to do it for them. That's my passion. And
that's beautiful.
It's come out in the style of how I work with my team too. Like I have, I don't believe in clock watching people. I really believe in a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. And that comes out in my management style. I'm really looking for outcomes and how people working. And one question I get a lot, and excuse me if I'm going down a rabbit hole, but people are asking me, talk to me about productivity and how can I get more out of the team? Should I use this particular tool to measure that? So one of the tools that came up recently, I won't name the particular tool, but I'll tell you what it does. It's a project management tool that can screen record what the person's doing. And they're saying, should we use this software for these people? And I'm like, well, I wouldn't really recommend that. Like, would you like it if I was screen recording what you're doing? And it's like, if the plumber comes to fix your tap, do you chuck a GPS tracker on their van? Like, you don't, do you? And so I worked with this one guy, and he had this software installed for his team. And he had a guy who was a video editor who he had found was watching Netflix while he was working. And I said, and he's like, what do you think of that then? And I said, well, what's the output of his work like? Tell me, like, is his, in terms of you paid him work, are you happy with the outputs and the time frame? He says, well, yeah. He's just, I'm really annoyed. I feel cheated. And I'm like, well, I understand that, but people are going to do their internet banking and they are going to take phone calls and they are going to do that. And if this person happens to be an amazing multitasker who can watch Netflix and do great work, why even look there? Like, how's it going to serve you? I've got to say, I can't watch Netflix and do my work at the same time. But if you can, and you're, great.
It's a great approach, and I really agree. You really, it feels to me like what you do is you give people their life back.
Well, that's definitely what I'm trying to do. It's time. And I think, how are they going to use that time? Passions, relationships, short strategy, and shaking the tree for new business. I did have a surprise early on, though. I thought, and this was probably a difference in culture, that first customer who was working the 16-hour days, I thought I managed to liberate him from task managing his team and got the chaos under control, and everyone was humming along, working now in sort of 2-week sprints, like not so much the corporate structure of Agile. And by the way, I think that structure has good merits. But in this case, we were doing a very simplified, let's plan out what people are doing for the next 10 days. Managed to free up this person some time. So the CEO is now out of doing all the project management of his business. What does he start doing? He starts still doing 16-hour days on creative and video production. I'm like, mate, we need to get you out of this. And he says, no, I enjoy this. This is what I want to do. I want to create movies. I want to produce, I'm going to create a Netflix video at some point. And actually, this person has now since shot a doco. So my assumption that people are always going to get there, are going to work less is wrong. And actually, one of my learnings, which was surprising for me, is, are people just going to want their time back? No, actually, sometimes their priorities are different. And when we speak to these people, we quite often, I want to understand what they're going to do, like how are they going to prioritize do they want us to focus on operational smoothness, or do we want to focus on them having more personal time? And quite often they're linked, but we give them the choice.
Yeah. And it sounds like for that customer, you gave him his life back because then he could put his time into what provided him the most amount of joy.
Yeah.
Because when we have time, we've got the choice about where we spend it. And he was obviously looking to do the things that he loved doing.
I think he's definitely much more in flow now rather than, I know the operations stuff was just destroying his soul. That's not what he wants to do. And I think that's true for a lot of high visionary characters. They certainly can do the operations, but they don't want to. Like, they want to be focusing on getting the next deal, having their vision enabled. They're quite often, these visionary sites, quite shoot from the hip, not necessarily in a bad way, but they're like, let's go down this road. Let's try this new product. But they also need reining in generally by an operator. It's like, well, you want to spin 100 plates. Let's start with 3 in this order. That's going to give you the most bang for buck.
What brings the most meaning and therefore joy to you in your business?
Oh, I think I feel really warm and fuzzy when someone tells me they've they feel like they're happy with the results. They're happy with getting their time back. But I also feel happy about there's a responsibility of being an employer, and I feel really happy when my team are doing something they enjoy too, and that is a source of enjoyment for me. And so one of my team members, when I asked him what his interests are, he said he likes doing video editing. And originally when I started this business, I was putting out social media posts, and I was doing my own video editing. And so if anyone wants to have a laugh, look at my old Instagram account, Virtual Do. It's not there anymore. I'm now using Lloyd Thompson. But there are some special effects in there which are off the planet. And that was me. I just got way too character away. And I had a few people saying, Lloyd, stop doing that. But I got someone in my team, and he told me he was enjoying doing video editing for his own personal interests. And I'm like, well, okay, that's your interest. How do you want to take on doing some of that work for me? And he really enjoys it, and he really excels at it. So not just seeing the wins for the customers when they get more time back, because that was what was so important to me in that flexibility, but also for my team. If you can align the interests of your team with a project that needs to succeed, that's like the ultimate win, because they are then, your team are then, their motivation's gone way up. They're going to just go the extra mile. They're really in it. So that's where I get lots of enjoyment.
Love it. Love it. Okay. The $1 million question, Lloyd. What does 6-star mean to you?
Okay. For me, I would say it's really about listening. And although you could provide a standardized service for someone, and we're going to say, when we come in, we're going to do A, then B, then C, then D, then E. And I really listen to them and understand what their pain points are and what's most important, and focusing on that in the order that's important to them, they're happier. So it's getting them, it's their happiness state ultimately, like whatever it is, however we've got there. And then that translates to my own happiness, because I have pride in what I do. And this has been surprising. It's not, you might think, oh, okay, well, surely wouldn't you just have a productized business and do it all in this order? But quite often I might say to the client, okay, we've done an assessment. This is what we found. We would go 1, 2, 3 in this order. And they might go, well, actually 3 is more important to me. Or what about this other thing 4 that you can do? And without having that regular conversation with them to understand what's important, you can't just do that. So, and we've been really adaptive with our clients when we've understood their needs. And actually over time, I've changed certain ways about how I operate my business due to listening to how the customer wants things. In terms of, one example is I've got a team in the Philippines. So my main service, as I was saying, is director of operations. Of course, we're providing director of operations, and they're for the most part in the US, where most of my clients are. Meanwhile, I've got a team in the Philippines, and they're a very good team. But if I see a case where my team in the Philippines can help a client, it's like, well, they're taking on some of this. The client themselves personally are doing some administration that we know how to do and we could offload. We'll just take it off them, and then we'll turn it into a process and help them hire their own person in the Philippines if it needs to be that country, or somewhere which might be a lower cost location, and help them succeed in their objectives. So listening and adapting.
I love it. You really are. You've really got the art down pat of blending the efficiency, right, and the operations with the humanity, the humanistic side, and blending that together. That's what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you've just got the biggest smile on your face. You clearly love what you do.
I do enjoy it. It is good. Like I say, there's always lessons, but, you have to go, all right, well, you make a mistake. What did I learn from it? This is going to make me better. This is going to make our business better. And having the team come up with solutions is great.
Yeah, I love it. Tell me, what's the future look like for Lloyd?
So I'm in a good place now. And for me, good place is not so much of a financial goal. It's actually time-wise. and I have great customers. I would like more customers, don't get me wrong. That's what I want, a few more. But I want to continue to grow organically, and to be able to retain this high level of quality so that I retain happiness. My team are not burnt out. They're not working too hard. My clients are happy. I'm happy, and my team's happy. And I want to do that at a nice, steady pace. And that KPI I mentioned earlier about one surf a day might have sounded like a joke, but if I can't do my one surf a day, something's wrong. It means I need to change something. So just to continue doing what we're doing, but always looking for ways to improve. And every new person that comes into my team, or every new client that we work with, there's always something we can learn and improve.
Okay, this is where I get to ask you, Lloyd, is there something you'd like to offer? Is there, how can our listeners get in touch with you if they've heard what you do, or they're just more excited about your journey and they just want to reach out and have a Zoom cuppa? How can they do that?
If there was a little piece of advice there somewhere, someone in business, I would say, well, what worked for me? Getting a coach or a mentor. That would be my piece of advice. I'd definitely recommend that. If you're someone with a team of 10 to 30 people and you're a marketing agency or an e-commerce, or you're just curious, or if you just want to expand your network and talk to me, there's a problem that I might be able to solve or point you in the right direction, then sure, connect with me. My website is virtualdoo.com. And also I have a book which is on Amazon. So for the people who are looking at this on YouTube, there it is, 9 Ways to Leave Your Day-to-Day Operations and Realize Your True Vision. And I do give that away for free on my website as a PDF. So if you're someone with a Kindle or you want something printed, you can go to Amazon, but you can also go to virtualdoo.com and get that book for free.
Awesome. Go there and get it, and as I will. Thank you, Lloyd. We'll have the links below in the show notes as well for everybody. Wow. I've just so loved this conversation, getting to know you. I love what you're doing for people and how you're giving them not just time back, you're giving them choices, right? You're giving them, you're reinstating their reason for being in business and allowing them to do what they do best. And that's my passion, to see people do what they do best and living their genius. And you obviously are. That is clear.
Thank you so much, Evelyn.
Thank you, Lloyd. You have a great day. I look forward to connecting soon, and keep in touch.
See you soon. Thanks again.
Thanks.